The catastrophic collapse of Terra's UST stablecoin has many wondering whether crypto will forever be reliant on centralized stablecoins like USDT and USDC. Well, a recent research paper proposes a solution, and that's to create a decentralized stablecoin that's backed by and can be redeemed for electricity, an idea so crazy that it just might work. Today, I'm going to give you a bit of background about the paper, break down what it says in simple terms, give you my take on whether this crazy idea could indeed work, and what it could all mean for crypto. Before we get electric, you need to know about my aesthetic. I'm really not a financial advisor, so please save your quips. Education and entertainment are my only dialectics. Please contact a financial advisor if your portfolio is anorexic. If this is the first time you hear this Brit, my name is Guy and I think crypto is lit. That's why my mission is to make the highest quality crypto content up in this bitch. Coins, tokens, news and reviews are just a portion of my remit. If you're a crypto addict, subscribe to the channel and give that notification bell a flick. Now that I've insured my acquit, let's see if this electric stablecoin is legit or if it's just a load of shit. If the idea of an electric stablecoin sounds familiar, that might be because you saw the recent Cointelegraph article about it. Now, I also saw this article, and after giving it a read, I decided to go down the rabbit hole of this research paper, and boy, did I find some rabbits. So, for starters, the research paper comes from the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, a government-funded research facility founded way back in 1952 to study the development of nuclear weapons, and later expanded to study just about anything related to the national security of the United States. If that wasn't interesting enough, I couldn't find much information about the authors of the research paper, Maxwell Murialdo and Jonathan Beloff. Maxwell's only social media presence seems to be his LinkedIn profile, which notes that he holds a doctorate degree from the California Institute of Technology with a speciality in materials science. His PhD thesis was titled, quote, Anomalous Thermodynamics of Non-Ideal Gas Fissorption on Nanostructured Carbons. Ah, that old chestnut. Now, seriously, if anyone knows what that means, please comment down below because I think we'd all like to know. Now, what's also interesting is that Maxwell has spent almost all of his career working at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and he notes on his LinkedIn that the focus of his work at the laboratory is 3D printable soft electronics and adversarial machine learning. Now, this is interesting because Maxwell's previous publications have nothing to do with cryptocurrency, save for one published in 2020 to the Journal of Interdisciplinary Economics titled, quote, Quantifying Value with Effective Complexity. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find the full text, but I suspect complexity equals value. Jonathan is equally interesting for almost the same reasons. Like Maxwell, Jonathan's only social media presence seems to be his LinkedIn profile, though he does seem to be quite active on it. Jonathan's LinkedIn notes that he holds a doctorate degree from the University of South Florida with a speciality in physical chemistry, and his thesis was titled, quote, Theory and Simulation of Metal Organic Materials and Biomolecules. So, clearly, these are some seriously smart chaps. Just like Maxwell, Jonathan has spent almost all of his career working at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and he notes on his LinkedIn that the focus of his work at the laboratory is, quote, matter under extreme conditions, non-equilibrium statistical physics, pattern formation, multiscale physics, and self-assembly. Again, this is interesting because it seems none of Jonathan's previous publications have anything to do with cryptocurrency either, which begs the questions of how and why these two chaps decided to write a research paper about a cryptocurrency stablecoin backed by electricity. The acknowledgements at the end of the research paper specify that, quote, this work was performed under the auspices of the US Department of Energy by Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory under contract DEAC 52 07NA 27344, a contract worth a whopping $61 billion, according to GovTribe. Now, While I'm tempted to say that there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye, the answer might be as simple as both authors investing in Terra, watching their Luna and UST go down to zero, and wanting to blow some research money. Anyways, you can find out what happened with Terra using the link in the description. Anyways, the research paper is titled, quote, "Can a stablecoin be collateralized by a fully decentralized physical asset?" It was published to the journal Crypto Economic Systems in June this year, and the full text can be found using the link in the description. The research paper begins with a brief introduction wherein the authors rightfully point out that stablecoins are stuck with a trade-off between decentralization and being backed by real-world assets with intrinsic value. The assumption being that these real-world assets must always be centralized. In the author's own words, quote, "We propose a new class of stablecoins that can be both fully decentralized and fully collateralized by a physical asset with intrinsic utility, which is, of course, electricity. The electric stablecoins the authors propose can, quote, transfer free energy in the form of electricity between anonymous users of a decentralized network without interfacing with utility corporations, power plants, or even electrical grid networks. And if that wasn't cool enough, quote, electricity can be used to collateralize a stablecoin such that each token can be exchanged for 1 kilowatt-hour of electricity and vice versa without any centralized authorities. Epic. So, the first part of the research paper explains what the authors consider to be the two types of cryptocurrencies. These are collateralized cryptocurrencies, such as Paxos's PaxG, which is backed by physical gold, and uncollateralized cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin's BTC, which is often referred to as digital gold. The authors reiterate what they mentioned in their abstract, and that's that collateralized cryptocurrencies always carry some risk due to the centralization of the assets that back them. In this case, the risk that someone would steal the gold backing the PaxG in circulation from Paxos's custodians. The authors also highlight the fact that you have to trust the issuers of these collateralized stablecoins and use Tether as their example, given that it hasn't been all that transparent about the assets backing its USDT stablecoin. More about how the biggest stablecoins are backed using the link in the description. Now, what's awesome is that the authors even call out central bank digital currencies by saying, quote, if a nation-state were to issue a cryptocurrency that is directly backed by that nation's fiat currency, there would remain risks that the nation would enact monetary policies that lead to excessive inflation. The authors then turn to the topic of uncollateralized cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin's BTC and correctly point out that their value is ultimately determined by how many people believe it holds value. The authors argue that this is exactly why the prices of cryptocurrencies are so volatile, and that even though many crypto holders claim that the volatility will decrease over time, this, quote, emergent value hypothesis has yet to be proven, which is a fair point. As far as the authors can tell, the volatility caused by this value mechanism is why stablecoins were created, but stress that, quote, to date, no stablecoin has been invented that is both hard-pegged to a stable physical asset with intrinsic utility and fully decentralized. Also true. Now, after briefly explaining the three types of stablecoins and their drawbacks, fiat collateralized, crypto collateralized, and uncollateralized, the authors propose their electric stablecoin as a solution and specify that, quote, the stablecoin concept proposed in this work has not yet been implemented. The authors add that it's going to take a few years for the technology to be developed that would make stablecoins backed by electricity possible. So, let's hope one of our viewers takes it upon themselves to make this happen sooner rather than later. Anyhow, the second part of the research paper explains why the authors are interested in creating a stablecoin backed by electricity, and it starts with yet another incredible layman's explanation of the author's so-called E-Stablecoin. Quote, the price peg is maintained by ensuring that each E-Stablecoin token is directly exchangeable for 1 kilowatt-hour of electricity and vice versa. Any user can mint an E-Stablecoin token with the input of 1 kilowatt-hour of electricity with fees, or can redeem an E-Stablecoin token in exchange for 1 kilowatt hour of electricity output, with fees. Crucially, there is no centralization anywhere in the system. There are no entities of authority, e.g. leadership, corporation, nation-state, centralized infrastructure, etc. It is a trustless system. Brings a tear to my eye. Now, as to why the authors chose electricity, they explain that it's the most widely available asset, it's an asset that's always in demand, it's an asset with a relatively stable price, recent economic crises notwithstanding, and that an E-stablecoin would make it possible to lower global energy prices. Now, this is where things get a bit complicated because these E-stablecoins, quote, cannot transmit electricity through conventional power lines, but instead transfers free energy solely through the communication of information. Now, for those unfamiliar, the concept of free energy comes from Nikola Tesla, the famous inventor who revolutionized electricity. Nikola theorized that it was possible to transmit energy wirelessly, and was even working on a prototype in 1901 before running out of capital. Look it up, it's seriously interesting stuff. Now, the authors conclude this section by noting, quote, the intended goal of E-stablecoins is to provide a stablecoin that replicates all of the decentralized functionality afforded by Bitcoin without ever having to rely on the unproven emergent value hypothesis. With that said, though, the authors also admit that an E-stablecoin would never be able to replace BTC because they have different economic profiles, the former having an indefinitely inflationary supply and the latter having a fixed supply. This is why it's odd the authors refer to both as a store of value. The third part of the research paper explains exactly how this E-stablecoin works, and the first sentence is deceptively simple. Quote, the theory behind E-stablecoin is built on the fact that free energy can be transferred by the transmission of information alone. The authors go on to give an example of how energy can be transmitted wirelessly without releasing heat, something once believed to be impossible because of the second law of thermodynamics. The authors then talk about how this free energy is analogous to the wireless transfer of information. Now, as far as I understand, what the authors are really getting at here is that physical energy can literally be converted into digital information and vice versa if you have the right technology. The authors give an example of what this would look like, and it's as complicated as you might expect. Step 1. Quote, Alice connects a Szilard engine to a large thermal mass at a single temperature. Alice extracts thermal energy and converts it into 1 kilowatt hour of electricity, along with waste data, which she stores locally via reversible computing. We'll come back to that lizard engine later. Step 2. Quote, for the price of 1 E-stablecoin token plus a fee, Alice outsources her waste data erasure process to a decentralized data storage cloud, D. In this exchange, a smart contract destroys the E-stablecoin tokens that Alice paid for this service. The decentralized data storage cloud is housed across a network of privately owned, decentralized, and anonymous reversible computers. Step 3. Quote, Bob storage space 2D can expand his own electricity locally to erase the waste data outsourced to his privately owned hard drive. For this service, Bob is awarded 1 E-stablecoin token plus a fee. This transaction is automatically mediated by a smart contract. Step 4. Quote, the fee structure is regulated with a transparent automated smart contract based on an estimate of the percentage of D that is currently empty. Now, if all of that flew over your head, let me try and explain it in another way to the best of my ability. Basically, Alice has some futuristic device that lets her extract energy from her surroundings. She can use this energy to do day-to-day things like trade crypto. Link to my Binance tutorial in the description. Huge fee discount is available there. Now, whenever Alice extracts energy from her surroundings with this device, it creates waste in the form of data, which Alice must spend the same amount of energy to destroy, i.e. delete from her device. Because this waste data builds up over time, Alice would eventually either have to pay energy to delete it from her hard drive when it gets full, or buy more hard drive space. This is for the thermodynamic reasons that the authors explained earlier, and I'll again come back to later. Now, there is a third alternative for Alice, and that's that she can send this waste data from her device to a decentralized storage cryptocurrency, where Bob is providing storage space via his personal hard drive as a miner or validator, in much the same way you would for crypto projects like Filecoin. The catch is that disposing of this waste data costs Alice one E-Stablecoin plus a fee, which is paid to the decentralized storage cryptocurrency network. Assuming Bob is selected by the network to destroy the waste data on his drive, he expends electricity to destroy it in exchange for one E-Stablecoin plus a fee. Naturally, Alice would buy this E-Stablecoin from someone, be it an individual in a peer-to-peer transfer or an institution like a crypto exchange. Since each E-Stablecoin represents 1 kilowatt-hour, it would cost whatever 1 kilowatt-hour of electricity costs in fiat terms. Whew. Now, the fourth part of the research paper explains the economics behind electric stablecoins. Here, the authors begin by reiterating that Bitcoin's BTC is considered to be digital gold, and though they're still skeptical of the value theory that underlines it, they don't deny that it's headed in that direction. The authors then acknowledge that minting and redeeming E-Stablecoins will cost quite a bit of electricity, roughly 2.8% of the world's total annual energy consumption over a 12-year period. They say this isn't a problem because there will be no shortage of energy to go around as more is created. That's something the critics conveniently forget about when discussing Bitcoin's own energy use, and you can get the facts and stats about that using the link in the description. I digress. Because there could be issues with redeeming billions of E-Stablecoins for billions of kilowatt-hours of electricity in a short time frame, the authors seem to suggest creating a cap on how many E-Stablecoins can be minted and redeemed each day, which makes sense if you ask me. Now, this ties into one of the issues E-Stablecoins could run into, and that's that if there isn't any more waste data left to erase from the decentralized storage cryptocurrency network, it means that more E-Stablecoins can't be minted. As basic economics dictates, this would cause E-Stablecoins to go above their 1 kilowatt-hour peg. Logically, the second issue E-Stablecoins could run into is an inverse of the first, and that's if the decentralized storage cryptocurrency network is filled with waste data, it means nobody can redeem E-Stablecoins for electricity. As basic economics dictates, this would cause E-Stablecoins to fall below their 1 kilowatt-hour peg. The authors admit that this second scenario could lead to a death spiral because E-Stablecoin holders would lose faith in their tokens, causing their price to collapse. The authors underscore that this is a real risk with a decentralized storage cryptocurrency whose total storage is always changing. As such, the authors suggest using a smart contract to adjust fees for the E-Stablecoin protocol to ensure that one E-Stablecoin can always be redeemed for 1 kilowatt-hour of electricity provided by a miner or node on the decentralized storage cryptocurrency network. The authors then pivot to discussing the profitability of providing futuristic data waste management services for E-Stablecoins and highlight that it fundamentally depends on two things: the fees being paid by Alice and the cost of energy wherever Bob is, with cheaper energy yielding a higher reward. The authors even go as far as to discuss the implications of intermittent energy sources such as wind and solar, and how that could result in some decentralized storage providers being online at different times of the day or year. Now, this all relates to the next subsection, which concerns the energy arbitrage between different jurisdictions. If you're confused by this jargon, the authors use a plain English example. Quote, Germany has the highest average electricity price at circa 36 cents per kilowatt-hour. For comparison, in Qatar, the price of electricity is as low as circa 3 cents per kilowatt-hour. A savvy investor may therefore take advantage of this arbitrage opportunity by minting E-Stablecoin tokens in Qatar and cashing in these same E-Stablecoin tokens in Germany, where the same kilowatt-hour of electricity could be sold back to the grid at a higher price point. The authors note that this arbitrage would eventually create an average energy price that will hopefully lower energy costs in most countries. The best part is that this electric arbitrage will always be possible precisely because of things like intermittent energy sources and regional change in energy output. And because the futuristic device used to create this energy is extracting it from one's surroundings, this means that this same arbitrage is even possible between places with radically different temperatures. The authors do admit that it might not be all that profitable, though. The fifth part of the research paper explains the 5 technologies required for this E-stablecoin system to work. The first technology is the decentralized storage cryptocurrency network and its smart contracts, and I'm sure most, if not all of you, know about those. Both of these technologies must be compatible with reverse computing, which doesn't currently exist, though it's known to be possible as per the author's earlier comments. The authors actually go into extreme detail about how these smart contracts should be set up and how they can preserve privacy. The second technology is called counterfactual communication, which sounds a lot like conversations I've had with a few folks in the past. In all seriousness, the authors effectively define counterfactual communication as a form of information sharing that is completely frictionless, or in the author's words, quote, does not transfer matter/energy from point A to point B, something that is necessary for an E-stablecoin system. Although counterfactual communication is also still mostly theoretical, the authors say that scientists have managed to achieve it on a small scale by using, quote, a single photon to detect the presence of a photosensitive bomb without interacting with and destroying the bomb in the process. Moreover, quote, a counterfactual communication network may be able to piggyback on photon-based qubit transmission channels, e.g. satellite and fiber optic, that are already being constructed for the quantum internet. Looking forward to that one. Now, the third technology E-stablecoins would require for their operations is that aforementioned Szilard engine, which you'd think is entirely theoretical, but actually seems to be in its early stages of development as well. Now, what exactly the Szilard engine is and how it works is outside the scope of this video, but the TLDR is that all information is entropy, and this means that you can transmit energy without emitting heat by expressing that entropy as information. In the context of E-stablecoins, the entropy is the waste data. The fourth technology is closely related to the third, and that's reversible computing. As explained by the authors, quote, reversible computing allows Alice to extract ambient heat and convert it into work plus waste data using a Szilard engine without expending energy, which in this case would be heat. Additionally, reversible computing, quote, allows Alice to outsource her waste data to Bob for erasure so that she does not have to expend energy locally to erase it. Now, as to what exactly reversible computing is, the name essentially says it all. Reversible computing makes it possible to reverse, quote, every aspect of operation involved in computation, including the energy your computer uses to compute things or trade crypto. As I mentioned a few moments ago, reversible computing doesn't currently exist, but the authors again note that it is theoretically possible and spend quite a bit of time explaining a design proposed by some other big-brained bloke that involves lots of magnets. The fifth technology required for an E-stablecoin to work is data storage capacity, which the authors note as being limited to supporting $2 quadrillion worth of E-stablecoins based on the laws of physics. Brilliant stuff. But alas, the authors reveal that today's data storage technology is insufficient to support E-stablecoins and, quote, only negligible quantities of value could be stored using the digital data storage media commercially available today. What's seriously scary is that the authors say that DNA could eventually be used for E-stablecoin related storage because, quote, on a per gram basis, DNA, or RNA, can store several orders of magnitude more data than state-of-the-art silicon-based hardware. What's more is that, quote, recent experiments indicate that DNA data storage can store up to 215 petabytes of data per gram of DNA, and, quote, approximately 200 kilograms of DNA storage could continuously transfer enough electricity to power the entire planet. Now, on that note, you can find out what rising energy costs could mean for crypto mining using the link in the description. Anywho, the research paper concludes with, quote, "This is the first proposal for a cryptocurrency that is both fully decentralized and fully collateralized by a physical asset with stable value and intrinsic utility, electricity. And that even though the technology isn't ready for it yet, it will be eventually." This is simply because all the 5 technologies required for E-Stablecoins to work are currently being researched and developed for other purposes, and that means there's a lot of money and manpower going towards each of them. The authors end with, quote, "If any cryptocurrency asset leans solely on its credibility to set it apart, the entrance of other cryptocurrencies with comparable credibility, like E-Stablecoins, can pose a threat to its unique value proposition in the future." So this brings me to the big question, and that's whether E-Stablecoins are the next big thing or just BS, and what they could mean for the future of cryptocurrency. I'll start by saying that based on my admittedly amateur understanding of this research paper, E-Stablecoins have lots of potential and could be the holy grail that many crypto holders are looking for. The thing is that the technologies that are required for E-Stablecoins to work are arguably even more revolutionary than the E-Stablecoins themselves. That makes me wonder whether they would ever be really adopted, or they even face competition resulting from other innovations related to their core tech. I mean, think about it. If you can make energy out of thin air with some sort of lizard machine, then why would you ever bother buying electricity with an E-Stablecoin? Never mind the fact that governments around the world seem to be trying to centralize and control their power grids from the top down. Now, I know physics says lots of waste data will be created when I make energy with my lizard machine, but it sounds like additional storage space will be extremely easy to get in the future, especially with all that DNA data storage, so why not just buy more storage space instead? There's also the question of whether governments would ever allow such a system to exist, especially since they appear to be the ones funding all this research and development. Something tells me they won't let this technology fall into the hands of the plebs, because it would cut them out of the equation. In terms of what it all means for cryptocurrency, I honestly don't know, because crypto will likely benefit from these technological innovations as well, and it's possible, if not likely, that these E-Stablecoins will come from the crypto industry itself. And speaking of which, I also don't entirely agree with the author's claim that emergent value is incorrect. I reckon it's quite clear that the value of an asset is something subjective, and I understand how that idea wouldn't sit well with someone who spent their career obsessing over objective scientific truths. At the same time, however, I can't claim that the emergent value hypothesis is correct because, as the authors pointed out, it hasn't been proven yet. It's also clear that Bitcoin's BTC, Ethereum's ETH, and these E-Stablecoins will all play a different role. They are not and probably will not be competitors. Even so, that hasn't stopped people from claiming that ETH could someday kill BTC, or stop these authors from suggesting that E-Stablecoins will kill crypto. I can't say much more about the latter battle because it hasn't begun, but if you're wondering what would happen if ETH flips BTC, well, link in the description. And that's all for today's video about electric stablecoins. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button s'il vous plaît. If you plan on coming back for more, subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell. If you've already watched all the videos on this channel, check out Coin Bureau clips for behind the scenes and more crypto flicks. If you've already watched everything on Coin Bureau clips, tune in to the Coin Bureau podcast for crypto info from the very beginning. If you've already listened to all the Coin Bureau podcast episodes, follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for memes and market insights. If you already follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, then join my Telegram for daily crypto updates. If you're already part of my Telegram channel, then subscribe to my weekly newsletter to see my crypto portfolio. If you've already done all of the above, then that means you are a super fan, and the only thing left to do is visit the Coin Bureau merch store and get yourself a cool crypto hoodie, sweater, or t-shirt. You can find your way there using the link in the description. So, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Stay cool, stay safe, and stay crypto.